Okay, so as you can see, anyone that has 10.2 currently, you're going to see the same exact view. If you go to the Certificates tab, the first thing we want to do is create a CSR. You want to fill out the bits that you actually want this encryption for that certificate. So in this case, we're going to do 2048 encryption. How long do you want the term to be? Now, the caveat to this is, even though you ask for, say, maybe 2 years, if you're doing an extended validation certificate, there's only a limit up to 1 year. So in some cases, even though you've asked for a longer period of time to stay valid, it might not be possible. So keep that in mind if you're doing a more extensive, higher certificate like the extended validation. The other thing is to fill out your state, your city, organization, the company that you might work for. And lastly, email. So we'll say this one is going to go to support. And then your common name. What exactly are you generating this for? So I can say if you're doing a wildcard certificate, an asterisk, and then the actual domain will suffice. This will allow it to be considered wildcard. So anything before .icewarp demo would be secured under that one certificate. And once we generate this, so in this case, I'm just going to say test2.icewarpdemo.com. I'm going to go ahead and create a CSR, a certificate signing request. I'll go ahead and save this to the desktop. And as you can see, it's been created and saved. Now you want to use this CSR to upload and create and purchase through the purchase process, get it signed and verified. So now that we've created it, if you look, you'll see an actual CSR entry. Now this is what allows us to really automate the installation process. So when you see that, that is normal. And what that actually gets pulled from is the config folder in IceWarp. You'll now see once you've done this, on any 10.2 installation, there'll be an underscore certs folder. Inside of the certs folder will be a CSR folder. And here it will contain all the open CSRs that you have. So these are CSRs, signing requests that you've generated and have not yet re-imported or installed into IceWarp. So they stay open. It's your CSR, your signing request, and also your public or your private key. So once we actually get the certificate signed, validated, and sent back to us, this information from this underscore certificates folder is what allows us to automate the installation process. So if we want to start, now that we have the CSR, we want to start the purchase process. Let me just go ahead to icewarp.com. Go to purchase. And you'll now see on the purchase page an SSL certificate purchase wizard. Once here, you can then choose what type of certificate you want. Do you want the domain validation, organizational, extended validation? Now, if you're just doing a multi-domain, you do not see that here yet because that's still the last piece that's being added to this site. So those would have to be generated by someone here at IceWarp. This should be finished Monday. So in this case, we're just going to do domain validation. The next step is to upload the CSR file that we just created. Now what it will do is process the CSR, and it's going to look and do an actual whois on that domain that you're trying to issue a SSL certificate for. And because it does a whois, it sees who's the actual registered email contact for that domain. And that's what you will see here. So if someone was trying to even generate a CSR for a domain they did not own or did not belong to, they would not be able to generate this because their email would not be listed. So they would never receive a validation email for this. So once you've chosen your email address, just click next. And here it's just going to be the normal run-of-the-mill purchase page. You would just go through, fill out your name, your organization, your website. The most important thing here is the challenge password. In order to validate and receive the signed certificate, you will need to specify a password and remember that password. When it comes time to download it after it's been generated, you would need to provide that password that you assigned here during the purchase process to then invoke the download of that certificate. So from here, you would just go on to a credit card billing or however you're going to pay, a check, maybe money order, and so on, and it would actually finish at that point. Once this is done, you will receive two messages. First one is just confirming that we have received your order. Just blow this up a little bit bigger so you can see it. And you can just see it's just a run-of-the-mill. Your order has been placed. The certificate will now be processed. So you're just alerting you that we have received your order and we are beginning to verify your information, and we'll send you an email shortly. The second email you will receive is a validation email. This is very important because we will not start the validation process until you have proved that the email address that is assigned to the Whois is actually valid. And to do that, we send you a validation email with a code. When doing this, you click here in the message. So it's just a hyperlink. And you just copy the code generated. And you just enter it here. Once you submit this, it'll say, thank you, your validation is now going to be processed. You'll be notified when your certificate is ready for download. So obviously this now takes, in some cases, a few hours to a day, depending on the type of certificate. So I've already fast forwarded a little bit, and now I have the actual signed certificate on this server. So I have mail.icewarpdemo.com. When it downloads, it's in a CRT format. So what we need to do is come back to IceWarp, and as you can see, I have a CSR for the same domain name, mail.icewarpdemo.com. In order to invoke the installation of this certificate, you just need to double-click, point to the actual signed certificate that you received, and open. It says, certificate created successfully and stored under the same path I showed you, config_certs, private, and then folder. Do you want to use this as the default? Now, if you say no, if this is going to be the only certificate that you're going to be using on the server, then you can say yes, you want to use that as the default certificate. If you're going to be using still multiple certificates, maybe you have only a few domains, so you have 2 or 3 different SSL certificates, you might want to say no, I do not want to use this as the default certificate. In this case, we're going to say no. So as you can see, the CSR entry has now disappeared. So we go back to the _search folder, go to private. We can now see there is a PIM file automatically created. And as you can see inside of this file are the different certificates that are needed to complete this certificate chain and encrypt the communication for that domain name. So in this case, there's 3 certificates and the private key. So the certificate chain is done in the back end without any interaction on your part. There's no need for you to try to rework your certificates to have it work. We actually do this for you. We validate it to make sure that the proper location of the certificates is how it is needed to secure the communication. And we do this, as you saw, with one click of the button. Now, if you wanted to bring this and use it as a service certificate, you just need to point to it. In this case, we'll just say, the local IP address. You can see it shows up, mail.icewarp demo. So that is how easy we've tried to make it as simple as possible and tend to for administrators to do this. The only difference that you might see is I've done this a few times. When you're importing this in, generating the CSR and you point to the certificate, it might ask you again for the password that you assign to that certificate. So keep that in mind. You just have to remember whatever password you assign to that certificate during the purchase process, it's going to be used multiple times during the collection and installation of the certificate. So it's very important that you keep that. The whole process now, from the generation of the CSR through the purchase process and the actual installation, can be done within minutes. The longest part is obviously the validation of your information and the signing of the certificate. Regular domain validation can take as little as 30 minutes to get done. The higher validation certificates, extended, organizational, and multi-domain, like I said, they can take sometimes hours up to days, depending on the amount of vetting that you have to go through to get that certificate.